Medusa, Gorgon, monster, face of terror, abomination. There are many ways to describe her, but if you ask me, she is the tragic victim of circumstance, a misunderstood creature who simply wanted to be left alone. Let's face it, there are far worse monsters than her. Let me tell you about them. Medusa wasn't always a hideous monster. Once upon a time, she was a beautiful priestess named Medusa who lived in the city of Sicyon in the Peloponnese region of Greece. She was a virginal maiden who devoted her life to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. And nothing in her life indicated that things were going to change anytime soon. That is until one day when she decided to take a bath in the temple of Athena. See, normally that wouldn't be such a big deal. But the problem was that Athena had just finished her own bath, and the water was still steaming hot. And instead of waiting for it to cool off, Medusa got in anyway. Now, depending on the version of the myth you read, either Athena cursed her out of jealousy because she was bathing in her temple, or Medusa accidentally poured freezing cold water on Athena while getting into the bath. Either way, Athena was furious, so she punished Medusa by turning her into a monster, albeit not necessarily a deadly one. According to Ovid, Medusa was transformed into a vile and loathsome creature with the wings of an owl, the tusks of a wild boar, and the hind legs of a frog. Oh, yeah, and she also grew a pair of huge, snaky locks for hair, which she wore as a diadem around her head. But what really sealed the deal was Athena's final gift to her, turning her beautiful face into something so horribly grotesque that whoever laid eyes on it would immediately be turned to stone. So that's why Medusa was banished from Olympus and forced to live out the rest of her life, alone in a cave on a remote western island called Poseidon. So that's basically the end of the story, right? Well, actually, that depends on whether you ask Athena, Medusa, or Perseus. Because according to Perseus's version of events, his mother was the most beautiful woman in the world. Until one day when she was bathing, she accidentally angered Poseidon, the god of the sea. He may have been the ruler of the seas, but he was hardly the nicest guy around, especially when someone offended him. So Poseidon grabbed Medusa, threw her in a cave, and did her like, well, you know. When Athena found out, she was furious. Not at Poseidon for violating her sacred temple, but at Medusa for losing her virginity. After all, she was supposed to be a virgin priestess, and now she was a fallen woman who needed to be punished. But then Poseidon said, hey, wait a minute, I kind of feel responsible here. So Athena suggested they make amends by giving her a special gift. And what could be more special than the ability to turn people to stone with just a look? So that's how Medusa became the Gorgon, although even this version makes no sense to me. If Athena wanted to punish Medusa, why did she give her a power that could only be used defensively? And if Medusa was banished to an island, why did Perseus find her there? Did Athena just forget where she sent her? Or was she secretly hoping that someone would come along and kill the Gorgon so she could get back at Poseidon? Well, whatever the reason, Medusa had spent years alone on the island until one day when she heard the sound of footsteps coming closer and closer. As she hid inside her cave, she saw Perseus approaching. Now, depending on the version of the myth you read, Perseus was either a demigod or a mortal, but either way, he was a hero destined for greatness. In fact, the gods themselves had ensured his birth by having his parents undergo a series of impossible trials. Zeus impregnated his mother, who was then placed inside a chest and thrown into the sea where she washed ashore on the nearby island. Fortunately, some shepherds found the chest, opened it, and discovered Perseus, whereupon they raised him as their own. And eventually, when he grew up, his adoptive father gave him a choice: either to marry the ugly princess of the neighboring kingdom, or to go on a quest to slay the fearsome Gorgon Medusa. Naturally, Perseus chose the latter, even though the odds of surviving the quest were roughly the same as getting hit by a coconut. You see, Medusa was no ordinary monster. Her mere gaze could turn men to stone, which meant that sneaking up on her was basically impossible unless, of course, you were a Perseus. You see, unlike everyone else, Perseus didn't need Athena's help because he already knew how to fly, thanks to a pair of winged sandals that were a gift from Hermes. He also had the ability to become invisible, courtesy of Hades, king of the underworld. But even these gifts weren't enough to ensure his success, because Medusa had a secret weapon, her pet snakes. And yes, those were a part of her hair. Now, depending on the version of the myth you read, either Athena told Perseus to use a mirrored shield to see Medusa and sneak up on her without her realizing it, or Hermes crafted a special helm of darkness that concealed Perseus's presence. Either way, he approached her cave undetected, but then he had to figure out a way to get inside. Now, some versions say that Medusa's entrance was magically concealed, but that wasn't much of an obstacle for Perseus because he either took out the magical guardians Athena sent to protect her or defeated the giants sent by Gaia to stop him. But once he entered the cave, he was met with a sight that made him forget everything he had learned about fighting Gorgons. Instead of a hideous monster, he found a beautiful woman asleep. It almost looked like one of those traps in those fairy tales where you have to kiss the frog to break the curse, except with frogs, you can't really screw it up. But with Gorgons, apparently you can, because either in that moment, Medusa turned into a hideous beast and attacked him, or Perseus woke her up and she did the same. But luckily, Perseus was prepared because he either used his mirrored shield to see her coming or the helm of darkness to hide from her, allowing him to get close enough to plunge his sword deep into her neck. And that should have been the end of it, right? Well, depending on the version of the myth you read, either Medusa's blood fell to the ground and created a great serpent, or Athena scooped up her blood in a jar and preserved it, or both. Then Medusa expired, whereupon Perseus cut off her head and put it on a bronze pedestal as a trophy. And I guess he was so proud of himself that he forgot to check what else happened as a result of slaying the Gorgon. For example, in some accounts, Athena used Medusa's blood to transform the giant camp into the constellation of the same name. In others, Medusa's severed head continued to breathe fire and had to be subdued by King Poseidon. And in yet others, Athena used the head to defend the Persians against the Trojans during the Trojan War. But you know what? I don't care about any of that. All I want to know is what happened to poor old Medusa. I mean, the girl had enough bad luck in her lifetime without dying, and then having her body parts scattered across the cosmos. I think she deserves better. And to be honest, I don't think Athena does either. Sure, Medusa may have lost her battle, but she was never a threat to Olympus. So Athena should have shown mercy instead of adding insult to injury. And what did she get in return? Betrayal, apparently. Because if you're wondering why Athena still has Medusa's head, it's probably because she wants to make sure her former priestess never comes back to haunt her. Now, speaking of betrayals, I'm pretty sure someone betrayed me by not subscribing. So if that was you, please consider subscribing. But if it wasn't, maybe check out this video on another monster who doesn't get nearly enough love, Cerberus.